to Marchese Daily, where we talk all about some political and sociocultural analyses, and we dissect them such that you are armed with a little bit more of a understanding to facilitate your life, to get your eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment. Today's topic, I'm going to talk all about the one and only thing that's been on the timeline the past 48 hours, and that is the Tucker Carlson Nick Fuentes interview. And I'll say as a disclaimer in the beginning, I know that amongst many of my mutuals, some of my mutuals really resent Nick Fuentes and the like, so just bear with me here, okay? I know we love to be so vicious about this stuff online and all of that, but certainly this is monumental with regards to the political landscape and everything along those lines. And, the question, the parentheses question. So before we begin, I want to tell you to like, subscribe, Marchese Max, reply, boost the engagement. There's this new algorithm or something that might be helping out us smaller accounts in some fashion. So be sure to do that. I got to get my one hit. I got to get famous, and I got to bring you guys all up with me. So that's that part. Let me turn the mic on the space here for the recording. So alongside that, be sure to head on over to marchesemethods.com for one-on-one coaching. You could do one session, or you could do 4 sessions in advance for a discount, as well as DM or email me for my Discord, marchesemethods@proton.me, for a $5 a month membership in the Discord, such that you can text me all day, every day, ask me questions, ask for my advice, get some help on everything with me using my based therapy techniques. So that's that. Perhaps we'll go right in here, and I'll just go as long as I can. I do have sort of like a backup, a secondary topic here in case it's warranted, about Redditors and empiricism and all that. And, I want to talk about this interview as well, because I keep saying every show, try not to talk about women challenge, impossible. And then subsequently, I'm sort of forced to talk about women. Maybe that sounds like cope, but, the psychology stuff is good and everything, but that always amounts to its being pursuant to women or pursuant to relationships. And kind of like one of the fundamental premises of just being a man or something along those lines is not being so fucking needy. What do you need any of that for anyway? But let me not go into that. So for those of you who might have seen, most of you probably most certainly have definitely seen that Tucker Carlson, to many of our surprise, interviewed Nick Fuentes. We didn't anticipate that happening. The two of them had a little bit of a beef spanning a handful of years, and you can watch the other streams to dissect that. But essentially, it really all starts with this Joe Kent character, this guy who is running for office, I think, LOL, IQ moment. I want to say somewhere in the North Midwest. I'm thinking like Ohio for some reason. He ran for some kind of office, and Nick Fuentes' faction helped him out. They were going to help him out, and they sort of did this undercover operation where they said to him, look, we'll boost you on Twitter and stuff like that. We'll convince people. We just won't tell people who we are, and along those lines. The only ask in return is that you don't publicly disavow him and the Groypers. And in some fashion, that public disavowal, it can't be so direct. He told him you could use whatever sort of thing you need, say whatever thing you need, but ultimately it amounted to just so long as it's not like a direct disavowal. And sure enough, without some kind of phone call or anything along those lines, Joe Kent was like sort of pressured into it. So Nick and the Groypers fought back. And so what they managed to do actually was to turn an election. They went there, they did their operation, and sure enough, they got him unelected. Tucker comes in subsequently in light of this. He was pro Joe Kent, and he saw him as like an authentic America First type. And so he sort of strongly disapproved of this. So he worked together with somebody to write like a big hit piece on Nick Fuentes, and that's sort of like the start of it, and then everything from the following years, and it culminated in this summer, them going back and forth because Tucker mentioned him on this interview with Candace, and Nick responded accordingly. And so eventually that amounted to they got in touch and they did this interview, which I didn't expect to see because I thought it was still going to be contentious. I thought it was still going to be some kind of I don't know if I want to say Tucker's establishment, or I thought he was establishment per se, but he was very much, as elucidated, very much in contact with everything from the CIA to DC and everything along those lines, spanning his entire life. You know, the guy's like in his 50s now, I think, so that's 30 years worth of media and all of that, and naturally you wind up rubbing shoulders with particular establishment figures, and you might get a promise or something along those lines. You might make a deal such that you facilitate the establishment's agenda. So now the premise that is causing 48 hours of like the worst kind of kvetching you will ever fucking see. I never would have thought I would have seen it this bad. You might have seen my post about it, my entire feed. Like there wasn't even, for once, actually, my feed wasn't consumed by complaining about fucking women in relationships. Or women complaining about men for that matter. So just that I don't sound like one of these faggots that says, men freaking accountability or something. So it was a remarkable thing to see yesterday. And the kvetching, what does it amount to? It amounts to the stuff that is, like, by definition, not fucking working. If this guy managed to land an interview with Tucker, if he has 1 million followers, then by definition, everything that's been tried up until this point to ostracize him, to berate and belittle him, hasn't fucking worked. 1 million followers and an interview with Tucker, and we're real doing the heckin' anti-Semite stuff, or we're still doing the he's a vile, vicious, hateful, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's over that. Everyone's tired of that. It doesn't work. It didn't work by definition in the first place, so why are we doing this now? And they're trying some new tactics, and the first tactic is... Or I mean, really, this is sort of like been one of the tactics all along, but it emerges as sort of like one of the tactics that's like, I guess, convincing for the most part, and that is to pathologize him. That is to essentially say, oh, well, let's interview him because we're curious how he came to be. And it's like the asterisk at the bottom, meaning like how he came to be such a big, fat, meanie jerk, and how he came to be so obsessed with the Jews. And like I can tell you, like, I pathologize people and things all the time, but you have to demonstrate an irrationality. You have to demonstrate that the substance of the points are not actually substantive for you to even entertain or posit or conjecture that there's a pathological element to any of this. And so none of them can do that. None of them have ever once done that, because any of his positions or any of the positions on the Jewish stuff, at least insofar as it's promulgated by him and his faction, my people, none of it ever amounts to actual hate. Unironic racial hatred is like gay and pathological, and like ironically that's like the nature of this whole Jewish thing in the first place. And not to be like actually, you know, freaking Jewish are hateful people, but the stuff in Palestine, the Talmudic stuff, the Jesus is burning, I don't even want to utter it, you know, what they say about Jesus. And most cope commentary about that is, well, have you read the whole Talmud? Or, well, that's just rabbis making it up for debate. You might have seen my tweet a while ago. I don't fucking care that it's like one obscure guy said it or something along those lines. The fact that it was up for fucking discussion even once as to whether Jesus is thing in hell is a problem in and of itself, is reflective of a faction of hatred. And then, of course, you could use that argument against us to say, well, there's a faction of hatred amongst you and your types. And of course, but if you're protective of that, if you're protective of the Talmudic stuff about Jesus and where he's going and all of that, you're like, that's the problem. Nobody amongst us is necessarily super protective of the ideology of like actual unironic hatred. So that's like the fundamental issue with regard to characterizing him as hateful or characterizing any version of Israel criticism, Jewish criticism as hateful. What's more, the real reduction of the point of all of that stuff amounts to what they think is like wrong to say, because it is sort of a like axiom or a heuristic, and that is that amongst the Jewish people in media powerful positions, they have a little bit more of a loyalty to their collective group than they do to the country at large. And that is, by the way, like one of the like ADL type definitions of anti-Semitism, of hatefulness to say. And it's just, you can't just arbitrarily assign that a hateful thing to say. It's not like people say that and then leave you to infer. Some people do this, but you say that to point out that in politically that implies that some of the policies that they will promote or enact, or the ways that they will wield their power, might not be in the American collective best interest, because sometimes their interests are diametrically opposed to ours. So, and that's not hateful. It's only hateful if you infer from there, oh, okay, well, that must mean they're big fat meanie jerks that I don't like because they're mean to me, or something along those lines. So the kvetching, it tries to pathologize him with this like, oh, hatred, oh, he must have grown up, he must be an incel or something along those lines. And it's just like, can you people grow up? You people don't even know how to do that. I know how to do that. You don't. You know, just because you're a big fat baby who, like a needy baby who needs like a woman fucking 24/7, a woman's attention 24/7, doesn't mean everyone else needs that. It's sort of like projective. It's sort of like, I could only have the balls to say things or say the truth online if you know, I wasn't at risk of losing the affection of a woman or something. And this is amongst the ostensible like tough guy, alpha male, whatever types with this stuff. So now, something I've noticed that they're trying to do, and this is like the actual, it feels gay to like do this, but this is like abhorrent. This is anathema. This is egregious. That is, the new topic is the new owning the Fuentes tards, owning the Groyper tards, is, well, how dare Tucker interview Nick Fuentes in a non-contentious way, which, by the way, wasn't true. He confronted him. They did argue. It's like, are we babies and we don't understand, like we actually unironically don't understand that you can argue without being rude to each other? Like they argued, they brought up points that were diametrically opposed, and they went back and forth. So this idea that it was some sort of softball thing is juvenile. So then they go, well, he gave him a softball interview, and that's morally inherently wrong because Charlie Kirk didn't like him, and Charlie Kirk wouldn't have approved. It's like, how fucking dare you? We just all went through that, and I don't like emotionalizing like that, but we all just went through that. I still think about that all fucking, like, every day. I still think about the seeing, I don't even want to describe it, the violence, the gruesomeness of the violence of what I saw in the videos. So how fucking dare you try to do that? And that doesn't even make sense. You know what? Charlie Kirk did not like Nick Fuentes, so we have to act like Nick Fuentes doesn't exist? Or we have to, not talk to him? It's like, what is, he's a person that exists in our country. Isn't our whole shtick about countryhood, about considering our fellow countrymen as somebody, like, in our orbit, in our locus, our galaxy of things we care about, certainly necessarily more distant from us than our actual direct nuclear families, of course, but nevertheless an extension of that, an actual authentic care and consideration for our fellow American. So it's like, what? We're just going to pretend this guy doesn't exist? It's not like he's being a big fat jerk. You're only left to infer that if you're just like an idiot. So because Charlie Kirk, and it's like, how dare you weaponize Charlie Kirk's martyrdom as some sort of bastion or some sort of barometer for morality now. I mean, like, the barometer for morality is walking all over his grave, is what libtards did in the wake of his death. But morality, in accordance with respect for Charlie Kirk's death, in no way, shape, or form relates to just not being able to interview somebody or talk to them or actually get an understanding of their beliefs. This guy's not going away. He's real. He exists. He's got 1 million followers now. He's been around amongst all these years, and every version of trying to silence him has done nothing. He's been around for 10 years. So can we, like, grow up and, like, the use of Charlie Kirk like that, and then just, like, this trend of just, like, releasing the fucking text messages with him. What is wrong with you people? You're degrading, you're tarnishing his legacy. Especially with regards to his legacy as the free speech thing and all of that. So you're showing him stuff that's really, like, the stuff he said that was damning in contradiction to that. And I hate to say it, I'm very careful with how I'm talking about this because I don't want to in any way talk ill of him in any fashion. But we all knew that he wouldn't interview. Like, case closed. We all knew what that was. Like, that was considered done, and that was considered over the day he died. That should have been considered that way amongst everybody. So I have no complaints as to whether or not he was willing to do that or something along those lines. But to bring that up, to sort of tacitly and unintentionally bring that up just for the sake of pursuing your own ego battle with this guy because you don't like that he's mean or whatever. And that's what a lot of the criticism amounts to. Now, I know I have a lot of friends who don't like him and say he's gay or whatever and along those lines. I'm not particularly defending him per se. I don't really want... I'm not on anybody's side. I'm on the America First side. I'm on the Patriots side of the internet and all that, but I'm not really, like, factionalizing myself. I don't want to place myself, like, amongst another faction. Like, if anything, once... to the extent that I have a faction now, like, we're our own thing and we have maybe people we get along with or something along those lines. So anyway, that's not to say I'm a part of that in any fashion or defending that such that I am a part of it, but that is to say that, like, what is exactly the problem? The problem is what? That this guy, like, is confident, I guess we could say. I've actually been trying to, like, psychoanalyze it, and the best I could really come up with is this sort of thing of just, like, resenting that he has this confidence that comes from living up to his morality, and that provokes the sensation in people that they're inferior because they don't live up to their own morality, and thus they sort of grow this seething resentment for him, especially because he rejects a lot of what other people falsely consider morality. I think of the food stuff, right? The food health guys. I tweeted about this the other day. Somebody super chatted him and was like, well, you should eat this, that, and the other thing. He's like, fuck you. Like, you people who do that, first of all, you guys all know one of my biggest shticks is criticizing the mediocre physique dorkery, the dorkery with the health red pills. That is, I'm going to eat my homoerotic steak and eggs on a wood cutting platter, like fucking women, like how women do when they post online, when they post on Instagram. My artsy little faggy cutting board with steak, and steak is, but it's manly because men eat meat, because some vague bullshit hunter-gatherism. It's like, okay, well, you're still a fucking pig for eating that much, and you're still an indulgent pig for wanting to consume, like, your goodsy, feelsy, fatty, sweetie, sugary foods. And once again, you're not fucking sexed up from doing that, because any single one of you lazy fat fucks actually lift weights. So that said, this anathema for him rejecting that comes from this It creates the consciousness of you're not fucking what you're acting like you are, this tough guy stuff. Now, there is a valid criticism in like his health habits or eating or something along those lines, but him misbehaving doesn't imply that you're not misbehaving in some fashion, or you're linearly behaving better because you eat steak and eggs, homoerotic steak and eggs on a fucking platter. That none of you even really do anyway. The infrastructure you need to do that, like ordering from these like racist farms or whatever. I make the joke with my friends, like racist nutrition, because that's our side of the internet with that stuff. Ordering from fascist farms. None of you even fucking do that. None of you even grow your own food with that stuff. Because that would be your job. Like a lot of these people, that's their entire job, is tending to the land with that. So anyway, that's to say that with regards to this anathema for him, like personally, none of that disproves any of the points made about the Jewish infiltration and power and subversion in the United States and more broadly in the West. So now, let's go over some of the other stuff. In particular, I think I want to say there is obviously this problem of like Zionism, Jewish support, and everything along those lines because of the infiltration through media, lobbies, and these types that are like pro-Israel paid and stuff like that. The meme that's been going around that they get paid $7,000 per post. I want to talk about, and this is sort of me weaving like the psychology into it. There seems to be this like underlying, because it does have to push a button for everybody. It does have to sort of push a psychosocial emotional need or something along those lines to be pro-Israel, pro-Zionism, or something along those lines. And I think it starts with you become right-wing from the very beginning. A lot of us become right-wing when we're like teenagers or something like that because we vaguely understand one of the foundational pillaristic differences between the left and the right is the left is like unaccountable. They're feelsy, impulse dorks. They're coomers. They don't respect free will. They don't respect agency. They don't have agency. They're lazy, that sort of thing. Everything's like an excuse for them to fuck off, an excuse for them to not face discomfort. So we all vaguely understand it. That's like step one. Then step two is we also sort of want to exercise our free will by being edgy. Edginess is an exercise in free will by way of rejecting or neglecting the neurotransmitter signals in the mammal brain when people shame us, group up on us, ostracize us. And so we tend to exercise that. But I think this other instinct comes in, and this instinct of I don't want to challenge everything too far. And we all already know this. I don't want to challenge everything too far such that I lose out on a lot of life and discomforts. And on some level, that's just stratagem. But there's also this instinct to I want to have everything neat and organized and well-defined such that I'm excused from really seeking out greater truth and potentially making myself uncomfortable in this edginess stuff. But also the comfort of just having everything nice and neatly organized in boxes. Okay, this is them, this is the left, they're feelsy retards, and I sit here, it's nice and neat and organized. I understand it in this really low IQ way of lower taxes and economics. And I think that economics thing even has this precipitating like success bro element to it, this success bro stuff. A lot of success bros understood or developed politics as a proxy expression of like success broing, of success bro accountability. You know, all that old stuff of like the 48 laws of power, how to win friends and influence people, these types. And, you know, you might have had some exposure to like the multi-level marketing worlds that do this stuff. So there's that, and they're nice and neatly organized and categorized, and it doesn't require that much brain power to understand politics in that fashion. Because I don't even really fully understand this stuff. I'm just like now picking up all the books and reading, and I'm not the best reader, I guess. Like I guess it's over for me. I'm like low IQ. I don't always pay attention to what I'm reading as I'm reading it, and I don't always like recall fully the reading, but My strategy is to just keep reading, all these similar books. So anyway, it requires a more complex understanding. You have to rationalize. You have to infer. Thinking about the stuff like the war in the Middle East, like what's really going on there. The regional hegemony goal of Israel, Iran needing to secure itself, understanding what it means for states to pursue security. I read a book recently about this by John J. Mearsheimer, how states think. A lot of them, their primary goal is security. And then what does it mean for a state to be rational? Because we're used to gay, libtardism of if you do thing that doesn't feel good, it's necessarily irrational. It's okay, well, that's only irrational according to a globo homo axiomatic perspective of hedonism or anything along those lines. And so finally, they're nice, neatly categorized and organized, and then to rationalize keeping themselves there, they say, oh, well, the Jew stuff is too far right. And their evidence for that is their pre-programmed 60 years of the image of that being skinheads and freaks and, big fat meanies. And then, of course, the traditional narratives about the history of all of that. And so it sort of has this appeal. It sort of pushes that button, these buttons of these interpersonal, psychosocial, emotional needs. And so now I want to go over some of the commentary that was said. The first thing I saw was this Morgan Ariel character. And essentially towards the end of the interview, they're talking about the woman thing. So I'll keep this part short. They're talking about the whole woman shtick, and essentially, she gets mad. She huffs and puffs because he makes the point of the man's sort of in charge in the household. The authority rests with the male. And the premises of that stuff that's particularly offensive to women is that they think it's presupposing that women are retarded and don't have agency and don't have free will. And I would say they can, but the majority of them don't, as we've been mentioning quite a bit on this show. But in particular, it's of grave discomfort of them. It's not really what they're wired to do to lead in that fashion, because even if they have high free will and high agency and they are able to sequester their feelings, it's just naturally very taxing on them because they're not really designed for that. It's significantly more taxing for them than it is for men. And so it's not to say that be a big fat meanie and beat the shit out of your spouse or something that's retarded and gay. But it is to say that the authority rests with the male, because the male is also more so the primary modicum of pursuit of the development of the family through his pursuits in the community, through pursuit of truth and everything associated. And so, but they do this meme. She did this meme of pathologizing him. Oh, he's never felt the affection of a woman, which really freaking heckin' inspires men to do all these things. And, make that meme of men used to go to war for women like this. And the offense of that is that's asking men to worship women, worship the affection of women, to be good little dogs and do a little treats. That's by definition not masculine, actually. Masculinity at its core entails that transcendence of neurotransmittal feelings and impulses to include the incentives of the affection of women. Every man understands that in their pursuit of masculinity, in their pursuit of truth and transcendence, it comes with separating and making the distinction between transcendental valuation of the pursuits of going to war and justice, truth, Renaissance skill development, career, leaving a mark on the world, leaving a legacy. These things have intrinsic value in and of themselves, regardless of whether or not women fucking give you coochie cookies for it, to quote one of my buddies here, Caesar. So but the resentment, the seethe, is that is for an idiot like that, the only way to control men is and the only way to assert any semblance of power, because she has no agency, she has no free will. We've mentioned quite a few times, it's the easier thing to do rather than to actually establish agency, and they do that pursuant to keep it, having their cake and eating it too, by getting to feel good without having to do what's good. And so it is, and again, crazy fucking concept, but not all of us are so enslaved and obsessed and compulsed with the affection of women. It's not even just agency or transcendence. Like, what exactly is so fucking great about that anyway? Don't get me wrong, I'm married. I'm more than happy in my marriage. But of course, I'm not living on this earth, or I never lived on this earth for just that, or for that as a primary thing. I don't want to say it's secondary, because that's like rude, or sort of in a way defiles the marriage, but I'll just say that, and the appeal always too, notice how it's always saying, well, that's not masculine, this is masculine. And it's further purporting or casting women as arbiters, as casting women as the arbiters of masculinity. They're not the arbiters of masculinity. They don't get to say what is masculine and what isn't masculine. And some would conjecture, well, they kind of do, because they decide what's attractive. And it's like, okay, well, look at what they're fucking doing. They also say that, like, they've also always been saying that giving girls flowers is attractive or something. So it's like, really, we're really going to take that seriously? So and the kvetching is like just some of the traditional bullshit lies. Tucker said that he freaking hates the Christians who are evangelists, who are dispensationalists. He freaking hates them. And it's like, he didn't say that. He said he hated that idea. And rightfully so, because dispensationalism, even just going with dispensationalism, oh, those who bless Israel will be blessed, or something like that. Okay, does that mean fucking what? Let them run your government? Like, what does that even mean? Does that mean the specific government of Israel? You might have heard Bibi Netanyahu. What does that mean? He's to be treated, as some sort of higher authority than the Pope himself or something, according to their religion. Like, what does that even mean? The modern secular state, as you might have heard, of Israel. What does that mean? You have to support them blowing up Palestinians. You have to support them waging war against Iran. You have to go to war on their behalf. You have to silence any and all criticism of their behavior. Like, what are they? Like, what are they, divine? That's idolatrous, if anything. And then, of course, there's the issue of dispensationalism is fake. It comes from the Scofield Bible, and there was a name I saw earlier today. I'm not too well read up on this, but it's fake. The blessing Israel, or everything associated that's actually real, to the extent that it's real in the New Testament and even in the Old Testament, like, the new Israel is the spirit, like the new church, the new Israel is everybody who follows Christ. So, of course, everybody who blesses others who follow Christ will be blessed. Like, how does it even make sense to try saying Jesus still considered the chosen people as unique and having exclusive access to God, or access to God that we don't have? The whole premise of Jesus is that he sacrificed himself such that we could all have access to God. But of course, like, just like it's almost like this really simplistic cope of just like, well, we want to be the tough guys. We want to be the cool guys. We want to have entitlement. We want to have the goyim underneath our thumb. We want to enslave the goyim. It's like this pretentious, like, egoism. They're mad that the savior that they thought that was going to come was going to say, all right, you guys have full control of the world. You guys have full enslavement of the Gentiles. And, I'm sort of like this cool guy savior. I'm not a humble savior. I'm not a humble carpenter. I'm not a humble one who talks to the poor, who blesses the poor, who says he who is without sin cast the first stone. They didn't like that he had an unwavering, irrefutable standard of love for all. They also contort that to say that love means this like libtarded, endless compassion, suicidal compassion, amounting to just be nice to not hurt people's feelings. Like, that's not compassion. It's evident. We all know this. We all know this when we work with children or raise children. You deny the kid candy, he cries. Is that incompassionate, or is that compassion insofar as you're looking out for his best interests? And that's not to say any of us have some kind of way to wag our fingers at everybody else, because that's gay, and being a faggot cope theorist, that's a gay projection. But that is to say, these contortions about love and about who Jesus was. Oh, Jesus was a Jew. Oh, okay. Does that mean he is an ethnically racial Jew akin to the racial Jews of today? And our best understanding of that is he's a descendant of David and he grew up in that area. It's like, okay, yeah, he grew up in that area. Did people not travel? Like, was there no such thing as travel? That's my favorite when it comes to the complaints. Oh, well, Nick Fuentes, well, he's stupid and doesn't make sense because Jesus is most likely brown. It's like, really? He was most likely brown according to what? Do you know that like the Eastern Mediterranean could easily have white admixture, whiteness there? Regionally, Greece is not all that far off. White Caucasus, Caucasian mountains, that's a distance away, but that's not like a significant distance. It's not a distance such that you could hypothesize that it's a significant enough distance such that you could have a significant racial difference akin to that of the difference between Europe and Asia, or between Europe and Africa. Of course, although there's technically not some distance there, and that's the joke about Italians. But anyway, so like, what's the deal here? What's the deal with all this ridiculousness? Like, why do we even need that? Why do we even need to say Jesus was a Jew or brown? It's like the need to say that, the obsession and compulsion to say that is just dripping with seethe for whites and seething for whiteness. Oh, whitewashing Jesus. Oh, because you're freaking white people and you just freaking think you're so cool. There's nothing wrong with thinking you're cool or your race is cool. Every race but white people do that. White people are fucking cool. We built ships. We evangelized the world. We colonized the world. How is it that we're expected to take accountability for our misgivings, our misdoings, our crimes that every nation, every people's committed? We're supposed to take credit of that despite it being 300 years ago, but as soon as we take credit for our accomplishments 300 years ago, it's, you're coping, you're the proletariat. You think you're trying to take credit for something that you don't have, and you're just using that as like an ego boost to excuse yourself from achieving excellence in your work or in your efforts. It's like, okay, so which is it? Is there accountability or credibility for things 300 years ago or not? So anyway, I don't think the Jewish right in particular is making that point and all that, but I'm just sort of off the riff here. I'm just sort of speaking extemporaneously. So, seeing how long I could go on this. I think as far as the points, the main points of the interview, the main points presented, it's really not that hard. You don't even have to be able to trace foreign relations and the money and all that stuff. It's really not that hard. If you have a nation that is built upon white identity, we've had blacks here, and I think they belong to America. I think they are American. They've been here the same amount of time. It's sort of a tricky thing to really precisely identify what it means to be an American, because In a way, in theory, it started with multiple ethnicities because there's literally like race is so distinct that there's a difference between German white people and Spanish white people. There's a difference between German white people and Italian white people. Enough so such that some people try to argue Italians aren't white. So it's like, or Western will even say there's a difference between genetically German white people and genetically French white people. So it is a tricky thing to really identify what it means to be an American, but fundamentally, the as far as it goes with like the racial stuff, it is that culture is downstream from the genetic expressions. It is a genetic expression. It's a genetic expression of the mind, of the collective unconscious of a people. This is how you just, my favorite example is just look at the differences in architecture. What exactly precipitates the Asiatic style of buildings with like the multiple roofs, that type of thing, and the European castles, we'll say, or cities? It had to be precipitated by the minds of those people and what it contributes to the minds of those people, their DNA, their genetics, their collective relations to each other. And so that is to say there is an element of if the culture or the country was built upon that sort of precipitating white identity, necessarily only white identity, white people can perpetuate that culture, perpetuate that architecture, that law, that governance, that structure, that way to interpersonally relate, those mannerisms, that language. And so that's like really the main point. It doesn't take that much. And insofar as it relates to Jewish people, it's that Jewish people are a distinct ethno group that perpetuate their own culture. And they can do that in Israel, but they have a particular loyalty to themselves that supersedes the loyalty of the native land, native country that's gotten them kicked out for thousands of years, that has left them as a diaspora people. So they're sort of like neurotic about it. And because they're neurotic about it, they're terrified with the legacies of the World War II and everything, to the extent that that was anti-Semitic and all that stuff. They have that in their minds. They have their 2,000-year history in their minds. They have all of that. So any sentiment or expression that spotlights that they are a collective sort of provokes this neuroticism, provokes this anxiety that they're going to be treated in the way that they have been historically. And so with that, they weaponize their power to subvert any expression otherwise. But of course, they also weaponize their power to advance their interests at the betrayal of the locality's interests. And in light of that, we have things like endless immigration. We have things like porn. We have things like marriage betrayal. We have things like anti-Christian sentiment. And it's a problem because if the country was built upon anathema for porn, a Christian identity, a white identity, then if you erode that, then you necessarily erode the country. And last I checked, if we love this country and we love what it became, necessarily we have to have those building blocks. You betray those building blocks, they get knocked down, and then it's over. Then it's not that country. A funny idea is like, what are we going to do? We're just going to become India with more stuff. India with more LED lights, I think I might have said the other day. So those are some of the main points. And as far as like the right goes, the right wing goes, there is this right-wing problem that anathema for him reduces to this like vague, and this isn't me, based a friend and everything, but this vague sort of rigid attachment, as mentioned earlier, to that masculinity thing of the right-wing justice-based ethics and all of that. And it's sort of like this low IQ problem of like, if the senator or whoever has parentheses R next to their name, Marchese methods R Naboo, they'll they sort of identify with that and they associate with that and they consider it, they conjecture that that can do no wrong because that is correct because that's not being a pussy libtard or something. And there's also this low IQ understanding of thinking that it's still about the left versus the right. Now there is such a thing as a multi-front war. And sometimes these two fronts also work together while also waging distinct and unique lines of war. The left is what it is. As we saw with Charlie Kirk, they are a problem in and of themselves, regardless of whether there's Jewish influence in them or not. And then, of course, there's also the Jewish component. And there's also the Jewish component that infiltrates the right wing and causes problems in the right wing. Taking advantage of dispensationalism. Taking advantage of that such that we get all right-wing evangelist Christian politicians to authorize anything and everything on Israel's behalf. So these things are two diametrically, like these are, they're not even diametrically opposed. I don't even know if there is a diametric opposition. I think one way to really say it is it's the people and their sovereignty versus establishment, organizations, libtardism, communism, I guess, and Jewry. And so we got to get past this like 2016 Ben Shapiro owns the libtard stuff of making it necessarily a left and right wing, and any expression or criticism of the right wing is necessarily left wing or pursues or advances the interests of the left wing. And we have to be honest about the behavior of the establishment and the right-wing politicians. Trump hasn't been doing a good job. I mean, they're starting to with ICE and everything, but even with ICE, this was also a major point in the interview. I do like the hype edits and the antagonizing ICE and all of that, but if you don't like wage fucking power and arrest them and get serious about purging the swamp, draining the swamp, so to say, next time they're just going to be activated and they're going to be furious and they are going to try to take back power. And then look what they fucking do with power. They fucking R-word us. I don't know if I could say it on the platforms that I stream to. So they fucking do what they do, like they did with J6. And we are also like faggily attached, and everyone rightfully is like anti-libertarian now, but we have this like faggy attachment to the Constitution and this mind virus that is power inherently in and of itself is like wrong or evil. Like, no, it's not. I mean, by definition, if we're Christian, right, that means that we acknowledge that God is all-powerful, omnipowerful. He has every power imaginable and then some. Is he evil for that? No, God is necessarily good, and God also wages the highest power possible, the infinite power. So how could power therefore necessarily be evil if infinite power is waged by God? And so this faggy compulsion for resentment for power comes from these like vague, homoerotic, masturbatory allusions to the Constitution. In Sam Hyde's words, what the fuck did the Constitution do for Irina Zarutska? The fuck did the Constitution do for Charlie Kirk? The Constitution, last I checked, isn't an absolute document bestowed unto us by God. The Bible is the only absolute amongst all the other religious writings that are authorized by the church. And especially because this is like a retarded interpretation of the Constitution. The original Constitution said that, only certain people can vote. And white people and all that. I'm not entirely sure that it's specifically white people, but landowners, like that was actually the original Constitution. We don't have that. And anytime somebody tries to say otherwise, it's the highest offense of the land to express a suggestion that to restrict voting, to reorganize how we vote and who we allow to vote. Suddenly, freedom, this freedom religion too. There's like leftard feelings worship religion, and then there's this like freedom religion. And that's just like code for being a baby. Like all that really amounts to is just code for I want the freedom to coom. There is like a psychological element to that of the freedom. I think I might have mentioned this on one of the shows, the freedom meme as a proxy expression of trying to, authorize Kumari, because Kumari in the mind is authorized by their rationalization, but if Kumari is not authorized by law, there's nothing they could do about it. They can't rationalize that away. And so they have this seething resentment for any expression of restriction. And it doesn't even make sense because freedom in and of itself is necessarily restricted by every day upon you. Every day your freedom to end a person's life is restricted upon. Every day your freedom to walk around with your fucking balls out is restricted upon. So obviously we draw a line somewhere. So why are we drawing the line there but not at voting when voting is pretty substantively consequential? So there is a rightful point here that needs to be made or needs to be understood coming from the Nick Fuentes alt-right Groyper camp that like the right wing kind of needs to get on board with, because there's even some of these guys that aren't libertarians per se, but still resent that or still like are approving of this slow motion thing, approving of this like half measure of power. Like you need to wage power to be correct because they're going to come back. They fucking killed our guy. They killed our guy under our watch. So imagine what they're going to fucking do when they get power back. And if you activate them without actually totally obliterating them and defeating them politically, of course, you activate them. Because let's not forget, it's not like the same people vote every election every time. If you activate them, you're going to activate people who usually don't vote to then subsequently vote libtard. So we need this utter defeat, this utter crush of them. And there needs to be a sort of unity with the Groypers and Nick Fuentes to facilitate that. Because I don't think any of you actually disagree with him per se. You just like don't like him. And amidst that, you need to wage what power you have with your vote and with any sort of influence you have locally, maybe, to incentivize Republitard, conservatard politicians to cater to you. They only cater to lobbies now. They cater to money because money wins the elections. But they neglect the part where votes also are a part of winning elections because you people dutifully vote for them anyway. Because, it's linearly somewhat better than the left. Okay, our guy got shot under our watch. So it's like at some point, when do you acknowledge that even if it's linearly better, it still sucks enough that it doesn't matter, such that you need to make demands for your vote. They need to earn your vote. They need to earn your support, even on your Twitter accounts. So, anyway, I haven't seen anybody in the space here. If you're in the live stream and you want to join in on the space, give your thoughts for our panel for our remaining time here. I have the space open. I see there's about 30 of you in the live stream right now. So head on over to the space. I'll try to think of something to say in the meantime to keep your attention, to keep you going. What else was this? The kvetching was like so funny too about it. I mean, it's so desperate. I think. And what does that tell you that they have to resort to that? They have to resort to that because they don't have an argument. I know that's kind of gay to say, and that's gay like Fox News type, like owning the libtards thing, arguing from feelings instead of facts, appealing to emotion. But really, like all they've ever been managed to do is to just place a stranglehold on the populace in their collective unconscious with feelings and with the legacy of World War II, the World War II religiosity. And so this increasing kvetching, it's like a baby. It's like when babies are used to getting their way when they throw a temper tantrum and then you stop indulging it. They throw like a temper tantrum a little harder for the first few times before they learn that that's not working. Like when are these people going to learn that that just doesn't fucking work anymore? Nobody cares. everything sucks. Everything's miserable. I mean, I'm not like a black pill type. I do think a lot of people exaggerate. Like, realistically, you go to your job every day, you get to do things, you get to play your games or whatever, even if they're kind of gay and global homo. But everyone's sort of looking for answers. Everyone sort of wants more to live for in life than stuff. And rightfully investigate politics, because politics is an expression of morality. It's sort of a proxy expression of morality. And so everyone's looking for more, because there is actually, this is sort of like the Marchese method psychology of that. When we arrive at what does it mean to have your eyes on the prize and find your fulfillment, joy, and peace have nothing to do with like your stuff. Only vaguely, insofar as it sort of checks the boxes of your needs met, such that your body's not in a chronic stress state. But beyond that, there's no linearity to that. So once you check that box off, you're investigating what it means for you to live, what you want your life to mean, what it means to be in this world, what you want to do for this world, what you want to do for God. And so naturally, politics is a proxy expression of that. What do we want to do with like how we do things? What do we want to pursue? And so everyone's kind of tired of living by this mammal brain feelsy thing, this mammal brain devaluation of truth in favor of ostracization, in favor of avoiding ostracization. And so it's so funny to see the kvetching. It just totally doesn't work. And it's so gay and low IQ too. They just freaking, I already mentioned it, but it really is like remarkably low IQ. Jesus was a Jew. Really, we're still doing this. He just freaking said he hates Christians. Well, the Bible says, so what? Do you freaking hate the Bible? Really, we're still doing this? And it's like sort of, it is like a satisfying like seed that they have to it. Like all they're resorting to is throwing these temper tantrums because there's no argument for what they say or for their position. There's no argument for it because it's necessarily to the detriment of the interests of the people they're trying to convince. And it's like, how can you not be an adult? Like, just try to construct an argument. And it's even like, what is even the emotional appeal? The emotional appeal is, well, it's mean to be hateful. Let's even presuppose that this faction, Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson, are hateful. Okay, and so what? That's mean? And then some of them will try to say, well, hate leads to the political consequences like Germany or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, aren't we worried then about the hatred that is promulgated against white people then? And some of these right-wing types sort of agree with that in that sentiment, but they never kvetch about that. They never care to argue about that or never care to appeal to the emotionality about that. And simultaneously, like, that is unironically, as gay as it sounds, like slippery slope stuff. Because how does that even promulgate hatred? What does it even mean to hate? To be mean? And I don't think being mean is the highest crime on earth. All being mean forces is people to sort of distance themselves. And being mean by group and separating by groups is, in a way, actually healthy. That's just the nature of things. That's the nature of humanity. Our hunter-gatherer brains read our race as an extension of our family, as our peoplehood. It was only a couple hundred years ago that your country and your race were synonymous. So the kvetch is, well, it's mean. It's mean when it's not even, or it might lead to meanness. No, it's just, what's meaner? Saying we need to have sovereignty, or saying we need to have sovereignty, or everything that's what's said about white people or what's going on in Palestine. What's actually fucking meaner? And so that's the kvetch. The kvetch is, oh, well, Charlie Kirk wouldn't have liked that, and since Charlie Kirk's a martyr, we have to somehow treat him like a saint or something. And that's not to defile his soul. That's not to defile his status. I would hope, or I would pray for the repose of his soul. I pray that he's in heaven. And I'm not exactly sure what would make him not because of the stuff about the difference between Catholicism and Protestants, but I would hope that at least he has a chance in purgatory. But that doesn't imply he's some kind of saint now. That doesn't imply that we somehow have to abide by his politics. That doesn't somehow imply that we suddenly have to agree with his politics. That's not defiling his character. That's not anything against him per se. If anything, it was all about trying to convince him, trying to talk to him, trying to engage with his politics. And look what happens. Like, is it the right wing that shot him in the neck? And I don't mean to say that glib or sarcastically or rudely, but like, who's the real enemy with that type of stuff? With regards to this political factionalism, who's the real enemy with that stuff? I'm much more concerned about the people who actually literally fucking murder us. So that's the kvetching. That is the Nick Fuentes interview with Tucker Carlson. I haven't seen anybody enter the space. Are you guys awake? Every day, do you guys just not even notice this on your feeds? Are you guys not online as much as I think you are? So anyway, I say that every day, so I'll quit that stuff. So that's going to be our show for today. Be sure to Marchese Max, like, subscribe, retweet, reply, get somebody to follow me, get my followers up, spread the word, spread the good word. Be sure to head on over to marchesemethods.com for one-on-one coaching, or for an hour or 4 hours up front, or you can head on over to DM me or email me at marchesemethods@proton.me for access to my Discord for $5 a month, where you will get access to texting me all day, every day, and I will use base therapy, epically epic Marchese Methods techniques to better help you gain your fulfillment and get your eyes on the prize with regard to your life and fulfilling your soul. So thanks for tuning in. I will see you tomorrow live on the air, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time.